Edgar Wright has always been one of the most unique directors out there currently. For the most part, you can spot an Edgar Wright movie from a mile away. You can spot a whip pan, a smash pan, a music driving action.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, I got to tell you about...
It's probably just an Edgar Wright movie. I think even the biggest critics of Edgar's filmography would have to admit he's a powerful and purposeful voice that is needed in a modern landscape of film. So when Last Night in Soho got announced ages ago, of course it was one of my most anticipated movies. Sadly, I did not see it right when it opened, and I started to see some pretty bad reviews roll in. I followed the philosophy of you'll never really be disappointed if you watch movies based on the directors, and someone as established as Edgar Wright making a bad movie would conflict directly with this ideology. Obviously, directors have blips, so I watched it, and surprise, surprise, I enjoyed it. I'll start with the casting. I had no idea that this was the chick from Jojo Rabbit. She was easily the best part of Jojo Rabbit. This film solidifies her as a rising star. She portrays the ambitious yet nervous, quiet yet bold fashion designer perfectly. The Doctor Who dude already has a really punchable face, so he matches this character perfectly as well. Had no idea Anya Taylor-Joy could actually sing. I had no idea. This is kind of cool. She really embraced the time period her character lived in and displays the downfall of the ambitious up-and-comer. I love how we tackled the idea of how we fantasize about other time periods and how we realize that the best time to be alive is probably the current day. I will say one thing about this film is there's not a single thing that is subtle. It is obvious to me that this was made as an excuse for Edgar to circle jerk about the 60s, but he's enough of a creative to turn it into something wonderful. Jesus man, this soundtrack might be the best compilation Edgar has put to the background of a film. And saying background to this film is probably not the right way to use it. Edgar is the director I think about where the scenes are obviously made with the sound design first, before it was shot. His sound design and soundtrack will always dictate his shots, and his style will be replicated far past his death. Another aspect I love of this film is how patient it is. The first hour is solid world building, where we really don't understand what's going on with these two worlds, but we are slowly being filled in on the rules of this world. Once the first dream turns into a nightmare, we get a pretty interesting concept. Nightmare on Elm Street-ism, I guess. She can't go to sleep anymore without seeing horrific imagery. I've also heard people quote how bad the CGI looks. I think it's a little more stylistic. Do we really believe that in an Edgar Wright movie, he got lazy overseeing the CGI and just would allow it in his film, and if he thought it looked like something he didn't want in his film? I can give Edgar the benefit of the doubt when its filmography looks like this. As soon as I noticed the mirrors would be commonplace, I knew that people would be criticizing it. I really do think all the cheesy aspects of this film are pretty commendable. Obviously the big dance scene will probably stand by as most people's favorite scene. When I watched it, I knew it was shot practically, and it's not necessarily a hard scene to shoot, meaning it's not like it hasn't been done before. The actors just hide and jump back in. You have to make sure they don't run into any of the film crew. Every aspect of this film demonstrates to me a director who has control of a product, and this was his vision. The only real problem with this film is when she runs to the police and turns into a bit of a dump to other characters that we haven't met. I would agree the story is extremely derivative and not special whatsoever. As I continue to watch more movies, I try to separate films that are trying to be something special narratively and something trying to be special thematically and visually. This film being the latter. I believe Edgar is able to realize that the core of this film is mostly cliches and almost beyond parody outcomes. The walking in the middle of a road and getting hit by a car mid-conversation trope, the bullying trope, the fire burning in the middle of a conversation turning into an even bigger fire trope. Like, come on, do we really think Edgar Wright thinks this is a fascinating story? Probably would still give this about a 6, but it's better than most films you've seen this year.